Welcome back to the Solitude and Single Track podcast, where we talk about our
Intros are
lives
stupid.
as off-grid RV nomads with our dirt bikes. I'm Zoe Anderson, and this lovely person is Taylor Anderson, my husband.
We were just talking about how I hated podcast intros, and so I had to ruin it.
Thanks.
Good job, though.
Well, anyways, today's topic is how to get your spouse into the sport of dirt bike riding if they have any interest in it, or if not, make them try it at least once. So let me hear from your perspective, Taylor, how we kind of got me into dirt bike riding.
Yeah, so I grew up dirt biking. I think we should start there a little bit. I grew up dirt biking. I started at 7, and then rode pretty much up until the time that we got together, and I sold my dirt bike not too long after we got together, and I got a dual sport, and then I got out of the dual sport thing pretty quick. So when we were in college, I decided to say, hey, tax returns just hit. We're just going to buy 2 bikes and go camping.
And we did. And I had no say in that other than
We're doing this.
Yeah, we're doing this, and we went to a gas station at like 11 o'clock at night and bought a KX85.
No, we didn't.
Oh, no, we didn't.
That's
that was
how we
selling
sold
it.
it.
That's how we sold it.
Yeah. We
I'm
sold it
getting
like
it mixed
that.
up. No,
No.
we went into a very nice house in northeast Portland and picked up the KX85.
Yeah, so we bought a 2002 KX85 that had a fresh rebuild on it. It was actually a really nice bike. Mm-hmm. And a completely clapped out YZ450 for me.
Yes. Which actually brings us to our first topic, is picking out your first bike for your significant other or for yourself if you are considering getting into the sport. But it just reminded me something that I wanted to bring up was the fact that so many people who are getting into it, especially men, think that they want to buy a 450. And how many 450s have you owned, Taylor?
2.
And a 500?
And a 500. Now,
and would you buy another one?
yeah, I would.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
No, you would not.
The thing is that at kind of where I've progressed is I can ride those now. Like before, I could ride the 501.
Right,
I didn't have.
But would you want to? Would you willingly go out and purchase a 450? Would you go out and buy a YZ450 today?
Okay, what 4-stroke at the beta demo did you come back saying you liked the most?
Okay, a 480, but like not in the woods. Like I said that though. Like I wouldn't ride it.
You would ride it in the woods.
No,
Give me
I
a
would
break.
not. I wouldn't be
Anyways,
able to.
So we're talking about wrong bikes.
Talking about wrong bikes
And
right bikes.
The tradition is everyone seems to go buy clapped out motocross bikes.
It's buying a clapped out motocross bike. It's either buying too much bike or not enough bike. And I think there's a really fine line, especially like when you're talking about getting your significant other, because honestly, your first bike kind of makes or breaks them wanting to continue on with the sport. So if you buy them a complete clapped out POS, whatever it is, and it doesn't run right and it's constantly having issues, she's not going to want to ride it ever again, bro.
Well,
like she's going to be like, what is this?
And if that thing takes 20 kicks to start, it's
She's
not
gonna
going to
hate
be a
it.
good time because
No.
she's going to stall it all the time.
So we've come up with a comprehensive list of really good starter bikes for specifically geared towards women, but this could also be towards other genders who are brand new and wanting to start. We have 3 different categories. We've got one for smaller framed people, one for larger framed people, and one that are either step up or somebody who has a little bit more experience, like somebody who's been riding on the street for a couple of years prior to getting into dirt. So we'll start with category number 1, which is bikes for smaller frame people.
Or any people.
Or any people. I guess I can't say just like small people. It's just like any people, but
these are like a requirement, if you ask me, for smaller frame people. Like, do not go bigger than this. So if you're 5'3", don't get a bike bigger than this to start.
Right. And this is mostly because you can put your feet on the ground, which is a really important thing. And I guess height's not everything. Also, inseam matters. But
yes.
Anyways, whatever. So this list consists of the CRF 125 and 150, the KLX 140, a TTR 125 LE, and an XR 100. And I mean, obviously there's many other bikes that can be incorporated into this, but this is just like the first things that we thought of that we see a lot of people on that work really, really, really well for beginners.
Absolutely. And they're also, most of those, with the exception of the XR, should be electric start or available in electric start and available with a clutch. So there are the 110s, and some people try and put their significant other on a 110. In my opinion, that is way too small. It feels like a kid's bike.
They're really small. I've seen girls start on them, and you outgrow them so fast, especially if it's somebody who's going to stick with it. They're super tiny. I mean, you'd have to be really, really small.
You'd have to be under 5 feet tall to even be able to consider it. Don't do it because it has no clutch. Having a clutch is a benefit in the long run, because once they get into riding, that clutch is 100% necessary, and you want to start developing that skill from day one.
Right.
So, Category 2.
Well, before we move on to Category 2, I just wanted to bring up that, like, my first bike was a KX85, and you'll notice that we don't have the 85 in that list at all, because I feel like that's kind of along with that 110. It's just too small of a bike. And the 85s themselves are, most of them are, if not all of them, are like motocross bikes.
They are. But they also... there are benefits to the KX85, being its weight. And if you have like a 85cc big wheel, that's not bad. However, when you're starting out, you're not riding the bike like it should be ridden, and they tend to foul plugs. They get plugged up really bad. They start to get really hard to start after a short amount of time, because they're not going to be winding the thing out to clear it out all the time.
No, and those things are really frustrating for a beginner to have to worry about. Like, when I was learning how to ride, I didn't want to worry about having to clear my bike out. I just wanted to ride it, but I couldn't ride it the way I wanted to ride it, which was really slow, because it needed to be... it wanted all the revs, and I didn't want to give it all the revs because I didn't want to give it the beans, and I was scared of looping it. And anyways, it's just not a fantastic bike to start somebody out on as an adult who is learning how to ride. So anyways, moving on to our next category, which is really good starter bikes for people who are a little bit bigger. You know, you're over 5'5", or you are just a bigger, stronger person. You want a bigger bike. We've got the TTR 225 or 230. We've got the CRF 230 and the KLX 230. And then I guess, I don't know what other bikes would be comparable to those.
There's the older DR 200s, however, that falls into an XR 200s, but those fall into the category of no electric start, which nowadays I feel is fairly important for teaching someone how to ride, especially if they're an adult that you're trying to teach how to ride.
Right. This is like specifically teaching your spouse to ride, and more specifically your woman to ride. A lot of people get into it, and obviously, like, you're going to stall your bike a lot when you first learn how to ride. You're going to drop it, you're going to stall it, it's going to happen. And having to sit there and kickstart it while you're already, like, trying to figure out everything else on how to ride a bike is so frustrating. So being able to just press a button and turn it on,
yeah,
life-changing.
Yeah. And so category 3 for bikes is the step-up bike that you can kind of grow into / no budget.
Like, these would all work really good as a starter bike, but they're just a little bit higher on the price range that I wouldn't recommend them as a starter bike because they're more...
Yeah.
Unless you want to spend that much money on a...
So let's start with the one we talked about a little bit ago, which was maybe even a trials bike with a seat, like the TRS.
Oh, we haven't talked about that in this...
No, we talked about it
Oh,
earlier.
yeah, earlier.
So the TRS X-Track with a seat, and that falls into a weird category because that is a trials bike. However, it has a seat and electric start.
And also, trials bikes are pretty much bulletproof. Like, you really can't blow those suckers up under normal circumstances. You really have to abuse them.
And first gear on a trials bike is
so slow.
So low, so easy to take off with. Now, I'm not saying go buy a 300cc two-stroke trials bike for a complete beginner.
No.
Because that would be a huge mistake. But a trials bike isn't a bad option. They're just a little pricier.
No, especially the smaller ones. What do they have, like 125 trials bikes?
Yeah, they have 80s as well. You can get
80s.
a Beta Evo Junior or Senior 80. So that could be a good option. However, if they need a seat, you need to find a model that has a aftermarket seat available.
Which is hard to do with trials bikes because not all of them offer that. The TRS X-Track is one, like, that's an exception that a lot of people end up riding as, like, their normal bikes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But beyond trials bikes, which would be fabulous if you could start on a trials bike, but not everybody has that kind of money, we have the Beta Cross Trainer, which is what I ride. It's my third bike, but I have no desire to switch out of it as of yet. Another one would be the KTM Freeride, which they don't make anymore. I think you said it was the E-Ride they make now. It's an electric version. The KTM Freeride they made for a few years. It's a similar concept to the Beta Cross Trainer. It's a smaller framed two-stroke bike that was made for smaller people.
Yeah.
Another one would be the Riehu Ranger, which I think falls into that same category.
Yeah, or the Gas Ranger.
Or
Gas. If you get a KTM owned bike.
And then the other thing would be the KTM 150, and I say KTM, but I really mean KTM Husky Gas, because, they're all the same bike.
Yeah.
And also a Beta 200RR would be a great bike to learn on, and a older KTM 200 XCW would be a fantastic bike to buy. But all of these are going to be much more expensive than any of the bikes that we had mentioned previously.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that if you find a bike that's not on this list that it won't be good. That's just saying the things that we've seen the most success on would be in one of these three lists.
Right.
There are exceptions, like the KO 230, which we've seen people start on, but that's a Chinese bike. It might be hard to get parts for. I don't know.
Or SSRs.
There are some of those that some people end up buying for their spouse, and they love them, and they work great for a first bike.
And they're also really cheap.
Yeah. If you're going to buy something like that, make sure you have a dealer that has access to parts, and they've been a dealer for a while and continue to plan on having access to parts for the foreseeable future.
Funny enough is my friend that has the had the KO 230, she never bought parts from the dealer. She would only buy parts from Temu.
You know what?
That's the cool thing about it. She would buy all of her stuff. I don't know what extent of things she would buy, but like actual mechanical parts for her KO from Temu.
I mean, you know what? Whatever gets you on two wheels. So, props there. Now.
But yes, having a dealer where you can buy a whole engine from would be the best. But also those bikes are $2,500 brand new.
Yeah, or less. Okay, next category.
Next category is gear. And I feel like this one's super important because I've seen so many people who will bring their girlfriend out and they throw her on a bike and they give her a helmet and gloves and that's it. And this girl is in jeans, freaking
t-shirt.
Nikes, and a t-shirt, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, if she goes down, she's getting hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad she's wearing a helmet, but like the rest of her body is going to be
Yeah.
bruised.
So I would say helmet, without a doubt, go buy brand new.
And make sure it fits well. Don't just buy a helmet that you think is going to fit. Like, have her try on as many helmets as she can and make sure they fit properly. Don't get something that's going to be too big. Get something helmets are going to be a little bit uncomfortable when you first put them on.
Yeah.
That foam needs to break in.
And I would say find a dealer that has a good selection of helmets. Go try tons of them on. You don't have to spend $700. For example, I just bought a brand new helmet, mid-ranged helmet, and I think it was $300.
Well, my Fox V1 helmet was $150.
Yeah, and
it works.
It works. You probably need an upgrade, but
Well, but it works, and but also keep in mind that a lot of helmets, just like shoes or other clothes, the sizes run different. Not all sizes are true. Not all smalls are small.
absolutely.
Like a Fox V1 small is going to be different from a
Bell Moto.
Bell Moto small.
Yeah.
They're all different. So
Yeah.
try on as many helmets. If you're going to spend money on 2 items for gear, I would say spend money on your helmet and spend money on your boots.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't mean you have to go out and spend $700 on Tech 10s
Yeah.
for your boots. But so I would check out, used gear. Check out Facebook Marketplace. Maybe join some local, if you're in some of the local dirt bike groups or local, dirt groups, check out people who are selling their old gear. Or a lot of people, get their significant other into it and they quit almost immediately.
Yeah, so jersey, pants, gloves, boots. Those
Buy
are
used.
things that you can find used at a reasonable price because people try to get their significant other into riding and they quit after one ride. That's not saying that your significant other will, just like mine didn't.
Which is why we're making this podcast, to make it so, give tips on how to make that not happen.
Yeah. So we've covered the gear.
Yeah, so go to a local retailer, whether that's a local store, Cycle Gear, or a local dealership or smaller mom and pop store. There are some brands that you might want to stay away from. Specifically, one that we talked about a little bit starts with B and ends with ILT.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
I mean, I guess
They're
it's not
definitely
bad.
built to fail.
It's not bad for starting out, but just be prepared to upgrade. Just not the boots.
Yeah, not the boots.
Boots.
So, now that we've covered gear a little bit, let's talk about maybe that first ride. Is that what you have on that list?
Yeah, so first ride, learning your first couple rides out and learning how to ride. And we both have differing opinions on this. My opinion is that you should find somebody to teach you that's not your significant other. And that's just because it's nothing against like your significant other's like ability to teach. It's just that there's like a science behind it. I actually have a whole podcast about why it's hard to take advice from your spouse. But finding somebody who can relate to you more and explain things in a different way is the way to go, in my opinion, as far as learning how to do dirt bikes or any other sport.
My take on it is that you should just go camping. Take them camping, have all the stuff there, and go on a couple rides. And definitely stay out of the staging areas, stay out of the busy areas, go take some gravel, find some cool sights to see. Don't bring your buddies that want to take single and double black diamond trails and then
Right.
drag your significant other on those.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't even... If you're getting your girlfriend into riding, just go out, you and her. Don't even bring any friends. Don't invite any friends. don't even tell him you're gonna go. Like, make sure nobody else is coming around to be like, hey, let's go hit these trails. Like, no, she's not gonna want to. She's gonna want to stay in a small space where she can learn the controls of the bike. And so there's like a couple things that I think that she really should focus on. And one of those things, it's probably the biggest main thing, is clutch control. I think clutch control is one of the biggest things that she should focus on when she first gets on the bike.
Even if it's starting out just taking off over and over and over again, like starting, stopping, over and over again, and maybe just going around in a circle. That can be really helpful. And then once they're comfortable, I think it's appropriate to go hit a couple gravel roads, take some logging roads, go see some sights, but don't go hit a bunch of gnarly trails.
Don't hit a trail at all if she's not comfortable with it. That's a big thing I see a lot of people. That's a big mistake I see a lot of people make, is they kind of force the person that's teaching gets bored and they force the other person to start taking trails a little bit too prematurely, which leads to that person getting super frustrated, because there's a big difference between riding a gravel road and getting on a trail, and now all of a sudden you have a lot more things to think about. I think if you can keep the amount of things the amount of new things that a person is learning to a minimum, you're going to have the most success in that.
And then the last thing I think to bring up in all of this is be encouraging, be positive. If they're not doing good, then it's okay to take a break. It's okay to like park the bikes and go take a walk or something. But try to be positive and encouraging and not make it a bad experience. Especially in the beginning. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay to make it a bad experience, but we all get frustrated at times, and sometimes if you just want to go for a ride, if you're the husband in this case, me, if you just want to go for a ride with your buddies or something. But if you're trying to drag your wife or significant other into this, let them do it at their own pace. They don't have to take everything all at once. What do you think?
Yeah, that, and don't, I guess, set your expectations low. I know that sounds really bad, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean don't expect to all of a sudden have like your perfect riding buddy all the time, because
However,
that might not happen immediately.
That won't happen immediately, but heck, 7 years in, when we go ride now, the funny thing is it's like if I ride with someone else, all I can think about is typically, I wish I could just ride with Zoe because I don't have to worry about her, and she makes it through everything that all the guys that I ride with can't.
Right. Well, sometimes, but yeah, but again, like that's another thing, is like it took me I've been riding for 7 years, and it took me 5 years to start taking it seriously. And the first 5 years were me on the KX and the Honda and figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like, and taking a bunch of trails that aren't hard now, but were really difficult to me back then, and throwing a fit about it before I figured out that riding doesn't have to be difficult if you just put some effort into it. Because we rode a lot when we first got into dirt bikes, but we didn't take it seriously, I guess.
Yeah, no, we would be your casual weekend warriors, where we would come out, we would hit a bunch of the stuff in one area, we would probably ride 40 to 60 miles a day, but we weren't hitting the super gnarly single track that isn't even on the map.
Well, and a lot of that's because I wasn't comfortable with it as a rider then, but also just don't expect to. This goes, I guess, both ways. Don't expect your significant other to be the perfect riding buddy right away. And if you are learning how to ride, don't expect to be at the same level as the person who's teaching you right away. Like, it could take a year, it could take 7 years.
Yeah.
It takes time. Dirt biking is not an easy sport to learn. It's not easy. And there's a reason that, not everybody does it. And something I also see a lot of girls do is they'll start riding a dirt bike and it's really hard and they have a couple good crashes and they're like, oh, buy me a quad. 4 wheels is easier.
Yeah. However, I think the quad in the long run is...
I think it's harder.
Yeah, I think it's setting you up for difficult times. The people that we know that are on quads and only ride quads really, really struggle when the terrain gets a little more technical or a little tighter. It makes it exponentially more difficult for them. And so, effectively, it makes the time they're having not near as good.
Right, and if you're the only person on a quad in a group of dirt bikes, you're not going to have a good time because the dirt bikes are going to take the trails that they want to take and not the trails that are easy for quads. And depending on the area you live in or ride in, the trails might not, even though they're wide enough for quads, they might not be optimized for quads. So they'll have berms and they'll have jumps and things that quads typically don't care to do very well, especially if you're not super comfortable riding at all.
Yeah. And anything off camber on a quad, a lot of times, like she said, those berms or jumps are kind of half track. And by half track, I mean, like, if it's a quad trail, it'll be way off camber. It'll be a jump for a dirt bike on half of the trail, or it'll be kind of this weird off camber bump for a quad. And I've seen a lot of rollovers because of that, and it just makes it a lot more difficult. So, if possible, stick to the dirt bike thing. Keep pushing, because you will get better. You will start to have a lot more fun. And don't just do it to try and keep up or hang. Do it to go see some cool sights. That was probably the best thing we got out of dirt biking, was all the crazy views you can see.
Yeah, crazy views and experiences and just the satisfaction of, I guess, doing something that's kind of difficult is all super rewarding in the end. And I'm not saying that, obviously I'm not saying that quads won't provide that as well, but don't get into the sport thinking that the only reason you're going into it is to make somebody happy or to, like you said, hang with other people. Like, ride your own ride, be at your own pace, do what you want to do. Get what you want to get out of that sport.
Yeah, and another thing is, on the trails, if you are the faster person, so make sure to wait at intersections. Always, wait on your partner. Don't leave people behind, because that can create a big mess really quick and really cause a lot of tension between you and your significant other. So,
or your friends, that should just be a rule of thumb. I've never understood, I've been riding with a lot more different people lately, and I'm typically the leader of the group, and I waited, even the smallest intersections that wouldn't even make sense to most people to even stop at. I'll stop at and wait for people, and I'll wait to make sure I can see every single person in the group before I continue. And I know that's annoying, but if you're with newer riders, they really appreciate that. They super appreciate people waiting for them at every intersection.
Don't leave anyone behind, ever. So always make sure you have all your riders. If you're going to have more than one person behind you, my rule of thumb is you are always responsible for the person directly behind you, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So, and if someone in front of you, for example, if you're in the back and if someone in front of you is off the trail, also stop. Don't just pass them and say, bye, I'll see you later.
Right, we've had that happen in group rides too.
Yeah.
And if you are in a bigger group ride, what we tend to do in group rides is we have one of the most experienced people in the front, and we have one of the most experienced people in the back doing sweep. We don't like to have the green riders in the very back because they can get lost, or if they do fall, no one's going to know about it until we get to an
absolutely.
intersection, and then now somebody has to go back and look for them. So if you're riding in a big group and you've got your newer riders, make sure they're somewhere in the middle where somebody can keep an eye on them and they still can see the person in front of them. But yeah, I think that pretty much concludes the topic for today. We've covered what type of bikes would be most suitable for somebody getting into riding, the kind of gear that you should get and what you should steer away from, and also just tips and tricks on, that first ride, the first couple times that you're on the seat and figuring stuff out. You have anything else to add?
Nope.
Nope.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, that is all we've got for today. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a like, depending on whatever podcast place you're listening from. I lost my train of thought, whether it's Spotify or iHeartRadio or wherever. Give us a
Or
5
Podbean.
or Podbean.
The best
I don't
one.
know. Whatever one you're listening to, if you can give us a 5-star rating, that would be amazing. And if you're listening on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe if you're not already. But yeah, that concludes everything for today. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or TikTok, whatever other social media platform you follow me on, and ask me any question. I will try my best to get back to you in a timely manner. But that's it. I'll catch you next time.